Well, welcome everyone to the Human Services Committee meeting of Monday, May 7th. We have a quorum, and so I call us all to order. And our first item of business is approval of the meeting minutes of March 5th, 2018. Do I have a motion to approve?
Move approval.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Okay, minutes were approved. So we'll take the comments from members of the public as we get to each item that you are interested in addressing. And, okay. So our first item for consideration is the renewal of the bed and breakfast license for Stone Porch, application by the Lake Bed and Breakfast located at 300 Church Street in Evanston.
Move approval.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any questions or discussion? Alderman Fisk.
Yes, thank you very much, Madam Chair. I'm going to vote against this just on the basis of this is the only B&B, the two B&Bs that are operating there are the only two that are not paying the hotel tax to the city of Evanston. And I just think it's unconscionable for a billionaire not to pay the B&B tax when all the mom and pop B's and B's in Evanston have to pay it. So I will be voting no this time.
All right. Any other discussion? Then all in favor of renewing the license for Stone Porch, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no.
No.
Ooh, I guess we're 2 to 2, 2 to 1, 2 to 2. Because I'll vote aye.
Yeah, because Alderman Braithwaite's not here.
And right. So what happens with that? Legal staff, what do we?
This is Mario Tretto, Assistant City Attorney. It would move forward with a neutral recommendation.
Okay, thank you. All right, next we have our rodent control update. And, Yvonne will give us that report. Okay, all those, okay.
Good evening, Madam Chair Ravel and members of Human Services Committee meeting. I am Yvonne Thomas-Smith, the Director for Health and Human Services. And even though you have the update in your packet, I'll just amplify and highlight some additional highlight some information that's already in your packet. So as you can see, our rodent treatment requests are at 123 just so far since January. We're expecting that those requests will probably remain stagnant as past years, but we have been decreasing in those requests every year. I want to highlight the efforts and strategies that we as staff use to support efforts that our community member and business members also in joint collaboration address rodent control. But our premier efforts is the education and transparency. As you know, many staff have attended ward meetings to educate residents. We have done rodent walks with aldermanic elected officials and residents, and we have 11 areas of focus for this year. And those areas of focus for the rodent walks are based on the number of service requests. We do a heat mapping to kind of strategize how many requests come out of certain areas. And as you can see, there are 11 areas of focus that we've identified, and that's due to historical volume. And so we'll do those walks with the residents and the business owners to help identify rodent burrows, harborage, and unfortunate environments that rodents can thrive. And so we do that on the public right-of-way, and we also do that for the business community. So I just wanted you to be aware of our efforts. And the rodent walks and the education we feel are hallmark in helping residents and business owners identify rodent harborage and places where rodents unfortunately can thrive in the community. Are there any questions about the update for rodent control?
From the committee, Alderman Fleming.
I don't have a question. I just want to applaud the efforts. I know that I've had residents and myself have called, and your team has been very responsive, and people obviously don't like the rodents, but they've been pleased with the response time. I will continue to make my plug, which I know is not our jurisdiction, for the skunks. If Rose ever picks up any kind of skunk termination program, I hope that we will join them in that effort, as they were very bad last year. But thank you for the efforts with the rodents. It's been very helpful in my ward.
Thank you.
And Alderman Fisk?
Stick up for the skunks here. Wasn't planning on making a statement. These little guys are much different. I just don't want them to be thrown in the same category as rats, because rats are harmful. They carry disease. It's a huge problem. Skunks basically eat grubs in your grass, and they, in order to protect themselves, they smell really bad. And but other than that, they do no harm. I think the greatest number of complaints that I've had are either under someone's front porch, or that someone's dog decides to initiate an interaction with a skunk, which has happened to my own dogs, and it's not very pleasant. But there isn't the same personal risk associated with them. And frankly, I've been really amazed at how polite some skunks can be when you when you're directly interacting with them. So. I would just ask us for patience. There can't be enough grubs in somebody's lawn. They move on within 2 to 3 days, so it's not a continuing problem for any individual homeowner. And I think we're following the right guidelines from Cook County. And so I would just encourage us not to put them in the same category as rats.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. And for those who are perhaps watching us from home and haven't read our packet, the May 11th is the date of the rodent walk, and so
Yes.
it's coming right up.
Yes, so we do have a scheduled rodent walk that's going to occur on May 11th, and this is just one of many. May 11th, 2018, in the targeted areas, would you like me to read that? Our 100 block of Asbury, the 800 block of Brummel, the 900 block of Chicago, the 800 block of Dobson, the 1300 block of Grant, the 1900 block of Jackson, the 1600 block of Lincoln, 500 block of Michigan, 700 block of Mulford, and the 1700 block of Sherman.
That's a lot of ground to cover
Yes.
in one day. Right. Okay. Any other questions or comments? Then we'll move on to your next report on General Assistance Program.
Sure. Our General Assistance update, I'm just going to highlight some things that are already in your packet. We continue to grow our GED and ABE, which is Adult Basic Education Program. We have expanded it beyond our participants, and Oakton Community College is our partner in doing this. And they're providing, currently have 10 students enrolled, and we expanded it to residents because the participants themselves asked if their family members could be a part of the GED program. And so Oakton complied with that request, and so we are offering GED and ABE classes not only to our program participants, but family members as well, and community residents as well. And again, currently 10 students are enrolled in GED, and 5 students are in the program that are community residents. Our partnership continues with financial literacy workshops through the YWCA, and I just want to amplify the great efforts in this financial literacy program. When we inherited the Township General Assistance Services, I'd say 95% of our participants were cashing their benefits at the currency exchange. And the reason that I was given by participants, it was quick, easy, but they were losing $7 to $10 of their benefits. And so this partnership with Fifth Third Bank and the partnership with the Y has allowed all of our participants to now have checking accounts. Some have savings accounts, and with the financial literacy program, they're actually saving money and keeping all of their benefits and not losing them through cashing at other entities. And they're very happy about that. Many of our participants, this is their first time ever having a checking and savings account. And they really enjoy the financial literacy that they keep repeating the workshops. And I've been told by some of the participants that they get something new out of every workshop that they've attended. So the majority of our participants have attended a minimum of 3 of the financial literacy workshops. Staff also works very closely with the Social Security Supplemental Income or the Social Security Office. General Assistance Fund has been refunded $8,624 because there have been participants who have gotten on Social Security because of our relationship with the liaison, and the Social Security Department reimburses the program for monies that we've paid on behalf of that client. So I'm happy to report that. Also, I would just like to amplify that you have an expense ledger in your packet, and I just want to make some comments. If you look on page 27, it really amplifies the program cost for rental subsidy and personal expense. And we also have a 50-50 program that we're going to institute again this year, where some participants are able to work the farmer's market, and the program pays 50% and the provider pays the other 50%. So we have 3 participants waiting on that opportunity. And then we also have put in a section for burial assistance for our participants. And then I'd just like to say also on your expense ledger, what you don't see on page 28 is that some of our some of our medical expenses, like medications, have not been transferred from the personal assistance category of the participant, and now we're going to transfer them and capture them under drugs and medication, which is where it really should be. So you're not seeing that cost there. We are going to transfer that in the New World system. Are there any questions about the General Assistance Update Report?
Alderman Fleming.
Thank you. I have a couple of questions. Thanks for the 50-50 explanation. I wasn't sure what that was.
Sure.
And I think that just for an update myself in the community, I remember we were at Erie and we were talking about the need for adult dental care.
Yes.
Were we ever able to find that for the clients?
It's very difficult to find a low-cost dental care, but in terms of Erie, I will not speak for them, but I do know that they're expanding their dental services, and right now they're only doing pediatric dentistry and adult pregnant women.
Yeah, they mentioned that in the tour. Okay. And then my other question is, you have on the list here, maybe page 25, some denials. Can you just kind of explain why someone would be denied from general assistance or emergency assistance?
Sure. So if someone is denied general assistance, it's because they may be eligible for another subsidy. Like a mom may come in with her children. She's eligible for the TANF program, Temporary Assistance for Needy Families, and that would automatically make a mom and her children under 18 ineligible for general assistance. Some other denials that we may have, if the person is over income, if they're making over $900 a month because they're working, then they would not meet the income eligibility. And some people don't know that, because we do encourage those who work part-time, seasonal, contractually, to apply so we can evaluate that budget. But if they're over income, they would be denied. If they're not an Evanston resident, if they're on Social Security benefit already, they would be denied. They can be pending Social Security and be eligible, but then once they get Social Security, they would be denied. For emergency assistance, if they don't meet the criteria of an emergency, which means that it compromises life, like loss of home, loss of electricity, they would be ineligible. Some of the emergencies are not life-affecting emergencies. Like we had a denial where someone got married. And so if it's mismanagement of money based on the decisions that someone has made, that would make them ineligible. You are ineligible for emergency assistance if you're eligible for general assistance. So you may come in and need a bridge of financial support, but if you're eligible for GA, then that would make you ineligible for emergency assistance.
So, for instance, if someone was in an apartment and say they lost their job, and so then they, were living check to check and are going to be behind on their rent, would that qualify as an emergency?
So it really depends. Emergency we can fill the gap as long as you can sustain. So if a person doesn't have income, then they wouldn't be able to sustain beyond our emergency assistance. So that would make them ineligible.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yep. Any other comments or questions?
I have a question maybe for the chair.
Sure.
And I don't know if this is a referral, so maybe the lawyer can help me. So I know I spoke to Director Thomas about this before. So the eligibility for general assistance follows under the township guidelines, correct?
Correct, under the state mandate.
And we are no longer a township. And so I would be interested in having a conversation regarding the criteria that you are not eligible for general assistance if you've ever had a Class 1 or Class X felony. And I would like us to think about maybe putting some kind of time parameter in there, because I'm hopeful that there are people who, have made mistakes and have, returned to the community, redeemed themselves, and are taxpayers and, productive members of our city who at some point in their life might be eligible and need general assistance. Particularly, I'm thinking of seniors or such who maybe, served some time when they were younger. And I would hate for them, based on one mistake, to never be eligible for this pot of money that our taxpayers have put aside. So since we're no longer under the state mandate, and I see in emergency assistance we don't have that same exclusion, right? It doesn't say anything in emergency
Sure.
assistance about any kind of criminal background. So I'd like for us to have a discussion. I'm not sure if that's appropriate referral for the next Human Services.
If I may, I could seek legal counsel on that, because I remember that when we took over the township by resolution, we were required to honor the state code for general assistance, but I will work with the legal department to see if there's an opportunity to look at that.
Okay,
Sure.
great.
Thank you for your
Thanks.
questions. Thank you.
Yep. Okay, then one more report.
Okay.
All right.
So I'm happy to report, or give an update about victim services. I have, because the immediate supervisor was on medical leave, so I've spent a lot of time learning about the victim services and the advocacy and the work that they do. And we meet regularly with the police department. We've met with the chaplains. The caseload of both current advocates is about 50. And we've had significant efforts during this transition. What I've learned is that we still need to amplify or collaborate in a meaningful way with our community partners, such as Northwest CASA, which sees our sexual assault victims. We want to partner intentionally, again, with Presence Behavioral Health, which sees a lot of our mentally ill clients that come involved with law enforcement. And we want to work closer with our ombudsman team, because there are a lot of well-being checks and a lot of response from the police on well-being. What is outstanding that still needs to be addressed is hiring another full-time advocate. We had 2 part-time positions budgeted, but what we found was we were having a challenge in getting an identified talent pool to actually interview for those part-time positions. So worked with the city manager's office to put the 2 part-time positions together to make one full-time, and we got a more robust, we got 16 applicants that we had to narrow down to 8 to interview, that we're interviewing with our community partners. I've asked the YWCA, Sandy Williams, and I've asked Cindy Castro from Presence to be a part of that panel to make sure that we get the right talent for that 3rd advocate position. There is an outstanding issue that remains that we're trying to address, and that is the 24/7. I've gotten feedback from the police department that they are really maxing the chaplain's ability to respond to death notifications, and families really need more services outside of the support that the chaplains can provide. And so I've gotten data that demonstrates there still remains a gap in not addressing 24/7. And so my hope is that with the new 3rd advocate and the integration into Health and Human Services in a deeper way, we're going to expand the advocacy response. I have 4 actually very competent social workers in the Human Services Division. And so I've met with them and talked with them with some additional training. Our hope is that we'll have a response of 6 and not just a response of the 3, so we can really provide the 24/7 coverage that's really needed for the community. And so we're working on that. So our advocates have gotten significant hours of training, and our hope is that The other staff will get that same training, and then we'll have a complementary, robust staff responding to the needs of the community. Are there anything or any questions that you may have about my report?
Questions? Okay, it sounds like good progress. So when do we think the third advocate will be hired?
So we're interviewing in the next 2 weeks, and then our hope is within the next month. It just depends on, all of these applicants are working, and so it really depends on how they can transition out, whoever the selected person is.
Right, great, okay.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you very much. All righty. Next. Okay, our next item is the Mental Health Board 2019 funding priorities. And those are, yes, hello there. Welcome.
I hope I can address the board.
Yes, please, please do.
I'm Corinne Ritzel. I'm a clinical psychologist in practice in the community and current chair of the mental health board. Many friendly faces. Alderman Fleming is the current rep to the mental health board. Alderman Ravel, you were our rep, and Judy Fisk, you are my alderman over there. Want to speak just, I hope that you each got in your packet the priorities, and I realize they're very general, so I want to make just a few more specific comments about mental health. The first of which is the importance of using the words mental health. There's still a lot of stigma attached, thank you for the head nod there, to using those words, and I think it is important that we recognize mental health issues. The other reason for that is that the E-Plan that many of you in this room have put a lot of time into identified mental health as the #1 community concern in this community for 2016 through 2021. And so I think we need to keep that in mind as well. And given that, I am a little bit puzzled and a little bit concerned that the Mental Health Board is on this potential list of programs that is being reevaluated in terms of their worth and validity in the city. We're cost effective. We're an all-volunteer board. And secondly, because of the way we are structured, we have a unique position in that we are our vetting process is very intensive in terms of funding, and we keep very close tabs on the agencies that we do recommend for funding. Each member of the board has a liaison commitment to 2 or 3 agencies, and city staff as well makes sure that financial protocol is followed. So those are 2 things in our favor. I want to speak just quickly, specifically to the city goals that the City Council has come up with this year. And I think, again, our services are relevant on a number of levels. The idea of providing a secure, attractive, desirable place to live and work and to offer access to core services. Well, I think mental health is a pretty core service. And again, referring back to the E-Plan. Another goal that programs which continue to be supported are those which facilitate housing options to accommodate a diverse community. And when I think of a diverse community, I think not only of the mentally ill, but the disabled and seniors and people with other special needs. 2 other board members are here with me tonight, and George Hall is going to speak briefly to the housing issue, and then I have a couple more quick comments, and then I promise we can move on.
Hello, everyone. My name's George Hall. Just wanted to mention some things real quick. Mental illness is a serious issue, and it doesn't end with just funding and legislation. It involves action which the agencies the Mental Health Board supports do for those with mental illness. My experience personally, I was at Albany Care for about 9 years. I'm not saying anything good or bad. They did a service to the people that were there, but getting housing from that and onto, having some kind of a life on one's own wasn't very easy. Impact, which was housing options, did an excellent job of getting us out. The William Consent Decree, which is a legal case that stated that people should have the right to get out and have a chance at making it if they can function, which there are many functional people there. But I do know that the housing urban development in the Washington and all the way down to the city of Chicago are having problems supporting and helping make sure that people can get vouchers, even when they do have vouchers already. That's basically it. It's Evanston's a great place, and if we can keep it that way, that'd be great by supporting Mental Health Board and the agencies that do their work. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
So I just wanted to address two final city council identified goals, one of which is that programs should encourage an inclusive community that is accepting, connected, and promotes shared responsibility. And I think that the programming that we have supported as the Mental Health Board for YOU, for Family Focus, for Metropolitan Family Services certainly addresses that particular goal. And finally, the goal of meeting the needs of historically underrepresented and/or underfunded programming for residents. We had Pat Effam come to our last meeting and really highlight for us that there are, in addition to the needs that we already know about, that there are other needs in this community that are not being met. And so with the help of city staff, I was able to very quickly for our next meeting have 2 social workers from 2 of the school, District 65 schools, come and talk with us about needs that they're aware of that we as a board may not be aware of. And as well to refocus in our upcoming funding application on gathering data about services and residents which are actually, services which are not getting provided, residents' needs which have not yet been met. And so we are, I think, have been in existence for a while, have provided valuable service, and hope to continue to do so. Thank you very much. One last member of our board is here and is going to speak briefly and share his thoughts. This is Mike Pierce, our board vice chair. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll be very brief. When I joined the board, I was amazed at how many people or how many agencies apply and are turned down. And these are good agencies. That's pretty much been my experience. I'm a social worker, clinical social worker, and the most difficult thing the board has to do is kind of find out who's the best of the best, because these are very good agencies. And what the board can do and does is provide some money, some little money, that can be leveraged. All these agencies go back and they talk to their boards, and their boards talk to their fundraisers and their marketing and their grant writers, and somehow pull together programs that are just kind of tenuously getting by in these troubled times. So I would just say anything drastic that would be done to the funding stream should be done slowly. It shouldn't be like next year we're not going to fund these agencies. I think it would be a disservice to our people, and it would be a disservice to the agencies and certainly the clients and the potential new ideas that keep rolling in. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Mike. Committee members, comments or questions? I'm looking at Alderman Fleming because she usually
So
turns
I-
a light on.
I do have a light on.
There we go.
Well, I just wanted to, I am their liaison, and I used to actually
Right.
be on the mental health board, so I wanted to just reiterate what the chair said in terms of the mental health board being on the list of 54 programs that the community is going to discuss. And as we just heard from Director Thomas Smith and look at the budget for general assistance in particular, the line item there for mental health and maybe it's psychiatric service, I can't remember what it's called, it's like $300. And so we know that that is not going very far. I know you all do a lot of referrals, but as we live in the state of Illinois and a lot of our social service agencies continue to be cut from the state, I think it's very important that we keep our funding commitment to the mental health board so that they can try to meet a small amount of needs here in the city with money that citizens and agencies don't have to worry about being under the cut of the state. So I just wanted to encourage my peers to remember that when we're out in the community with our budget conversations.
Thank you. Well, I guess I just have one question. If I look at the paragraph that talks about the purpose of the mental health board in the last sentence or it talks in a couple places about helping residents who are unable to meet their basic needs and providing access to basic human needs. But when I look at the 4 bullet points for your proposed focus in grant making in this coming year, I guess I don't see that basic human needs piece reflected in there. I'm wondering, are the programs going to have a mental health component to be able to receive the funding?
I appreciate your question about that, because many of the agencies that have presented to us applications in prior years have been oriented Meals on Wheels, basic nutritional needs. Some of the agencies that we have funded deal with basic housing issues for seniors, for the mentally ill. So, yes, we are still having that focus. We've had a lot of internal discussion about the fact that we are a mental health board and that it is important, ideally, that those programs also provide a case management angle to those services, because otherwise they aren't technically, a mental health need that's being met. But certainly we recognize the interface between, housing and food and mental health. Does that answer the question, or?
Right. I was, when I was still the liaison to the committee,
Yeah.
there was the discussion about, since you are the mental health board,
Right.
to what extent should there be a mental health component to the grantees' programs?
And the housing agencies, as far as I'm aware of, very much have a mental health component. I think the issue came up with specifically the meal provision component of it, in that they don't typically they're not staffed, they don't have a case management component.
Right. So they would not be eligible then? Or?
Well, that would, in this age of cutbacks, that may be the case. That if they cannot show a clearer mental health direction, that they might be cut.
Okay.
Because we there's, as Mike pointed out, we often get many agencies coming to us that we can't fund each year.
Right, yeah. And I recognize that the board is the mental health board, but we don't also have a human services board. So,
Right.
a basic human needs board. So we don't want to lose those funding for those important programs too. So.
I agree. It's a dilemma.
concern.
I mean, I
Right.
wish the funds were greater, then we
Right,
could
yes.
fund more
Right.
programs or make recommendations for funding more programs.
Okay, great. Anything else from the committee? All righty, then, next, our police issues work plan update.
Good evening,
Yes,
Madam
good
Chair, members of the committee. I actually have only 2 updates since the last time we met. Number 4, which is the crisis intervention team training. As of today's date, we've had 55 officers have been trained. We have 4 officers that are slotted to attend the training in May and 2 more in June. And then number 5, the continued training offered by Dr. Logan. We completed our third town hall meeting on April 26th, and the topic was social media, crime prevention, and community policing. And the 4th one hasn't been scheduled yet, but it'll be sometime in the fall. So that's really the only updates. Everything is status quo, everything else.
Okay. Questions or comments? Alderman
I
Fleming?
do have one quick question.
Yes, ma'am.
So when I started, we were already in this work plan. Can you tell me, do we add things to it as they come? I guess I'm not really sure how the work plan works. I appreciate having the updates, but do you all add things to this as council directs, or?
Actually, because there's a lot, if you see, a lot of it has been completed, but there are
Right.
some things that are just ongoing, and those are the things that I comment on. But most of them have been completed.
So is the goal of this work plan for you to just kind of complete it, and then I guess I'm confused as to, I know a lot of it is completed and you give an update.
Correct. And it can always be improved or added on, but as
Okay.
far as that, these 27 were the ones that we
Okay.
came up with.
Got it. All right, thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. Any other questions?
Okay. Are you also going to do anything about the review of the police complaints, or is that just up to the
We
committee?
have a commander right for that.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep. Thank you. Great. Good evening.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the committee, Commander Jody Wright, Office of Professional Standards.
Okay. Everybody's read everything? Any? No. I'm looking at my lights here.
All right, well, here I go. All right, so, I'm sorry, I thought you were going to say something first, so I hadn't pulled up the page I wanted to get to. I think the not so much question, but the comment that I have that I've voiced before to the OPS staff is just in the way that these are written. So I appreciate that there is a lot of background given. However, until we now have body cameras, it will make it much easier to review these. It's kind of just he said, she said, for lack of a better term, right? I'm not there. And some of them, I feel like give a lot of background about the complainant in terms of if they've had any other interactions with law enforcement. And I just want us to be always mindful that can make the decision maker a little more biased depending on what their view of, someone who maybe had a previous arrest. So I know that the complaint review committee has some suggestions and it's not finished yet. But just as I read these, some are a little more straightforward and some go into more background on the complainant that for me is not necessarily necessary in making the decision about the particular complaint. So if we could just be mindful that because we don't give a lot of background on the police officer himself, whether he had a previous complaint or such, I want us to just make sure these are really focused on what needs to be known about the complaint and the officer in this situation.
Sure, we can put more scrutiny into them. Obviously, if there's some background, the summaries are written for the public, the committee, and also CPAC. So if there's background about the complainant, depending on the allegation that's made, sometimes that background is important in determining the steps of the investigation and why these specific dispositions were given. But we can definitely put more scrutiny into the summaries, and if the background isn't necessary, then we can definitely exclude it.
Thank you. And then about the one that involved, I think it's the first one, that involved a situation at the public school. I know that I spoke with the chief today, so I know that kind of has already been rectified, but I am looking forward to kind of more cautious police enforcement on our school grounds when children are present.
Sure, and yeah, definitely, I agree with you. Certain situations, as in this instance, it was a traffic stop that we can't dictate, but always if we can dictate the nature of our presence on the school grounds for the safety of the students as well as everyone attending, we'll try to do that. But certain situations obviously are just out of our control.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments or questions from committee? Okay, thanks very much. All right, now we're on to a major item. I have some public comments, so I think maybe we'll go ahead and do those, and then we'll have your presentation. Okay, so Carlos Mendez.
I'm a little nervous, so bear with me.
It's okay.
For being here. Good evening, Madam Chair and members of the committee. My name is Carlos Mendez, and I am the assistant principal of Washington Elementary School here in Evanston. I'm also the person who filed the complaint, CR number 17-03. While I have to respect the decision of this department, I have to say I'm disappointed as I read how the situation is being portrayed. There are obvious discrepancies in the report versus what both myself and the principal experienced during that day, and also what the audio recording supports. I guess it's very evident that any report can be written to give the outcome desired. My actions that day were in support of the original responding officer as I tried to make him aware that all the children were watching him confront an employee of District 65. I teach my students to trust the police and I want them to view every officer as people who help them and protect us. But what they saw that day, when I was forcefully pushed more than once by an officer, it made that lesson a lot harder to believe. I hope in the future there's a lot of increased training on how to defuse a situation and work with school staff to prevent children from being exposed to these avoidable issues. As I stated in my complaint, my desired outcome in filing this complaint was not to get any officer in trouble, but to open the lines of communication that creates awareness around the protocols and what protocols they need to be in place when acting on school property in clear view of children. I thank you for your time, and I would like to ask, in question to what your comment earlier about your conversation, what was rectified, because nobody has ever spoken to me about what rectification means. And I also want to point out that the traffic stop was outside of school grounds. It just ended in front of our building.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. So I believe Alderman Fleming was addressing that particular
Yeah, and
issue
so
in the
this is-
previous item. Yeah.
Well, he's speaking about the complaint, not the complaint process. So he's speaking about.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, so sometimes I stick my foot in my mouth. So I don't think that I can speak more because it's a personnel issue.
It's okay.
But I do want to applaud you for coming, and I appreciate that because we get a lot of these complaints, and I do appreciate people making complaints because it's important for us in oversight with our police, but people don't always come, to the dais and give a personal testimony. So I appreciate that. I'm sympathetic to what happened, but I appreciate you coming, and I appreciate your peers coming with you for support, and I'm hopeful that this will be a learning lesson for our officers. So I'm sorry, that's all I can say.
Thank you.
Yep. Thank you very much for coming. Okay. Betty Esther?
Good evening. I'm speaking to the Citizen Police Complaint Assessment Committee status report. I read through that with a quick glance today. Haven't went through it thoroughly, but we at the Citizen Network of Protection will be giving it a thorough review and giving you our comments before it probably comes before the City Council on that. I want to congratulate the group in all of their night efforts and looking and reading and going through the internet. It is a challenge. They did it in a short time. We did ours in 8 years and still is doing it. I was kind of surprised in that the survey and kind of disappointed that more people did not respond to the survey that they put it out. We tried to get people to respond to that. But the people that did, we are grateful for their comments to them. One of the things that they gave, which kind of stuck out to me, was that they looked at Eugene, Oregon, and their report and their committee oversight and what they had done and everything. This was dated 2005. And I was kind of surprised of that date since we had went to the committee, talked to them, we met with them, we gave them information on reports of different other community, different organizations that had wrote about Police Oversight Committee that was more current than 2005. And out of that, there was really 3 really well-known organizations, the NAACP, the American Civil Liberty Union, the United Nations. All of them came together and said, this is best practice for oversight committee. They had 8 that was all the same. And I know they wasn't looking at in terms of oversight as to what they were supposed to do. They was looking at how the forms and the process for the complaint process was supposed to go. But in not taking into account that information to address that issue, I know we told them and people, look for something that is like Evanston. That always can't be done for the simple reason the people in Eugene, Oregon are not like Evanston. Which we were like them, but we're not, so we can't go with that. We have to deal with what we have in-house, in our community, and what the people are saying. So if you take it for what it is and looking in terms of only with the application of what the form, how it should look, they did give some good suggestions in changing the form. The process of how the OPS should do the handling of the complaints, there needs to be some more work done of that. With that said, thank you, and we will give you our complete review of the process. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And so is this Madeline Ducré? There she is.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Good evening, people at home. My name is Madeline Ducré. I would like to touch on several things. Won't talk long on either one. The parks. Someone told us that we would have a sign, Twigs, Butler, sign there in January. We are still waiting. What about the white marking at Simpson and Dodge? Children are still passing there. What about the safety of our children? The meeting here tonight, 6 o'clock. Are you all thinking about the people who work? Children have to be fed. 7 o'clock would be much better. Please think about it. Affordable housing. There are many people in this little town who are looking for reasonable rent to pay. $1,700, $1,700 a month. An apartment on Emerson Street between Gray and Hartree, I think. For 3 bedrooms, $1,700, and you have to pay utility. Something is happening in this town, and we wonder why we are losing people in Evanston and Illinois. General Assistant. I was not for the Evanston Township leaving Evanston because it helped. It helped people to stay in this little town. They had a training program for people who were on drugs to find them jobs, to keep them with their families. Wally, the city manager, promised us at the 5th Ward meeting when Dolores Holmes was there. He promised us that those programs would be there for us. 1% of our taxes, if I remember correctly, Nobody missed that little tax that was paying. And here, people are leaving here. We need to talk about that. I thank you for bringing that up, Alderman Fleming. Thank you. We need to hear some more, though. Citizen Network of Protection. I attended the meeting the other night there. For the life of me, I cannot understand why our mayor, Haggerty, did not appoint someone from Kevin Brown program there. I mean, it just blows my mind. Why not have a young person that happened to fall under the category of white, a white young man there, a black young man? They're out there. We're paying for them to help our children out. There's cut. Look in Chicago now. The killing is coming back up again. There's a reason for that. We are tired of seeing our children have to sell drugs to put food on the table, to pay child support. These things are happening. And I want to talk about Sanctuary City. But I came here late, and I'll talk about it next time.
Okay, thank you. All righty, now we're ready. We have a presentation from the working group. You've been working hard.
Thank you. Madam Chair Ravel, Alderman, good evening. My name is Matthew Mitchell. I'm the chair of the Citizen Police Complaint Assessment Committee. A number of the other members of the committee are here tonight as well. The committee, I was planning on doing just a short overview of our work, and then I'm open to any questions.
Okay, thank you.
Work? Thank you. So the committee was founded a year ago, May 2017, by the City Council. We started meeting in October 2017 with an original date of completion of May 2018, which would be right now. After we had started working, we asked the City Council through the mayor if we could extend that deadline until October 2018 and give a status report in May 2018. So this is the status report. We intend to make a full written recommendation come October 2018. We divided ourselves into 3 working groups. The first is the data working group, who put together a survey of Evanston residents. They gathered data on people's experiences with the current complaint process. Through a City of Evanston intern, she compiled a database of complaints, historical complaints against police that have gone through the process from 2011 through 2016. Both of those reports are attached as addendums. I want to make sure that you did get our actual memorandum. I know it was added late
Right,
to
yeah,
the packet.
we have it now.
Great, thank you. And if you have any questions about that, we're happy to answer it tonight or later. The second working group, the best practices working group, researched best practices of complaint processes, generally civilian complaints against police officers and police staff. We started internationally and then focused more nationally because of the robust justice system in America. It is very specific. And so what other communities in the United States have done is a lot more relevant than other international communities. We've looked seriously at those and generally have broken down 3 models that most communities tend to use. I don't need to get into them right now, but I'm happy to answer any questions. Another best practice that's recognized is an alternative dispute resolution component of police complaints, where there would be some type of informal mediation between police officers and citizens. And that can look a lot of different ways. Let's see. The final working group is the process working group, which focused very much on Evanston's current process. They started and did most of their work on the intake process, starting with the intake form. They've looked at intake forms from a lot of other communities and come up with a draft proposal. They submitted that to the whole committee and plan in the next month to work with OPS to see if we can just institute that. OPS has been very cooperative, and there are some small steps to the process that aren't going to take any work by the council, but the Evanston Police Department can make small steps. Same with CPAC. There's some small changes they could make that would make the system work better. I want to go back to the best practices, and that there is no singular best practice, that most communities tend to create a model that works and addresses the concerns of the community. That said, there tend to be ideals of best practices. Transparency, due process, fairness, personal accountability of police officers and of individuals, and structural accountability so that the entire system is accountable. The process working group has also looked at the current process from the initial intake, which is handled by the Evanston Police Department through OPS, the investigation by OPS. Evanston Police Department takes complaints against police officers, official complaints, they take them very seriously. They go through the chain of command. There's a written report, it goes to CPAC, it goes to HSC. There are some structural problems, I think, and I think the committee agrees, with the current system, and we intend to make a full recommendation in October of this year. I'm just going to turn to the committee and ask if I've missed anything important. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, great, thanks. So, committee, what are any comments or thoughts? I'll jump in and ask. So are you, with the proposed revisions to the complaint form, are you envision going ahead and working with the police department to get that already? You're not going to wait till October to implement that?
Correct. We're working with OPS over the next month, and hopefully the OPS is going to institute a new intake form.
Right. Yeah. It looked like you were making some really good suggestions there. So.
And on this point, OPS was very cooperative.
Right. Yep. Okay. Alderman Fleming.
So thank you for the thorough report so far. I know you have some things left to do, but I appreciate that you all have come to the CPAC meetings and observed what happens there, and then, giving us some things to think about already. Will you be doing, I know it's hard to get people to do surveys. I appreciate that there were some actual interviews in there as well. Do you all look forward to doing some more of those? Do you see a need for doing more of those, or did that capture kind of what you were looking for?
I think there is a need for additional dialogue, and we did some official interviews. We've had a lot of conversations with members in the community, and I have found personally that those have been very beneficial and have guided our path going forward. Ms. Esther of CMP is a champion of police oversight and has clearly thought a lot about it. Meeting and talking with her has been very helpful for me and for the committee. We've talked with current police officers, we've talked with former police officers, we've talked with police leadership. DC Barnes attends all of our meetings and is very cooperative and engaged. Who else? We've talked to members of the community, and I think we continue to do so.
All right. And then in looking at what you guys gave for the oversight models, I know as we go into the budget year, we want to get this right, but, I don't know that we're going to be able to move forward with some things that are maybe more pricey. So I would just encourage the team to be very creative and think about how we can revamp our system where needed, but also keep costs low so that we can also justify what we're doing. And then I would hope that after October, when you produce your final report and we get to the point of making decisions to implement things, that you all would also be community advocates to help us to educate the community on whatever new process we're using so that people can feel confident in making their complaints and the complaint process. I think that when I speak to people, a lot of people either feel like they don't feel confident in the process or they don't even know what the process is, and particularly the turnaround time that it takes. I think people have mentioned some frustration there. So hopefully, as we move forward and continue this and complete it, that you all will, stay on board to help us get the word out in the community about what it is and encourage people to use the process so we can see if it's working.
Thank you. Yes.
Great. Okay. Anybody else? Well, thank you very much, all of you. We can see already that there's been a tremendous amount of work and in a really positive direction. And so we're really looking forward to your final report in October.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. All right. Next, arrest records. And this is sort of a continuation of a discussion that we started back in March, discussion about whether posting of the arrest records on the website. And so I guess the question to us is, the specific question to us is whether how long we want to keep arrest records up on the website, because I believe they've addressed the question of making sure that the arrest records aren't searchable now. So, any thoughts or questions?
Can we get an explanation, as I know this came up before and it was policy or law, or can we understand what has to be in terms of reporting arrests?
Yes. So
I don't know where the staff is, so I think it's you.
Yeah, I can answer that question.
Thank you.
There's no requirement as to timing. It just needs to be available to the public as long as it complies with all of the FOIA requirements and all statutory applications. So in terms of timing, that's a policy decision that is up for City Council.
I think Alderman Ruth Simmons was asking about what needs to be released, right? The name and the address and.
Right.
Yeah, so there's a set of there's a list of items that can't be provided. For example, a victim's name, any protected private information. There's a few statutes that I would need to cite. I can come back and provide you with that information.
I can chime in. I've spent a lot of time in this one. So we have to do name, address, or home address, arrest location. Probably the officers can help. Age, I think, has to be on there. The officer arresting, the reason for the arrest, all those things. My concern, I guess, and I appreciate that the staff worked to make this so that we can't search it via Google, because that is a huge problem. But there is an issue of how long we need to have these on our website. And if I'm correct in understanding what the law is we have to produce an arrest report, a daily arrest report, but I don't think the law says it has to go online. So I know that.
That's what I was asking.
Okay, yeah, that's correct. So it needs to be available to the public.
So it needs to be available, right?
There's no statutory requirement that it be online.
Right. So part of my concern, part of my request, I guess, would be that my first request would be that we don't put them online. If you are really that interested, you can sign up and they can be emailed to you. If you are the one who's arrested, you can get your arrest record, through our police department or the victim or so on. If people think that is too much too soon, then I would ask that we limit these from being online. I just don't see, and I've looked at some different cities. Other cities do it the way we do. I looked at Chicago, which they have a database, so you have to have someone's name or arrest number or something like that to put in a system to get the arrest record. So again, being that one, I'm a huge believer in redemption. I think that people get arrested probably all the time and wish they hadn't. And I just don't see the purpose of putting it online. I don't even like the email, but if you're really that interested in having the email, I would, I would be okay with that. But I just don't see a reason for these being online. I don't really see a reason for the administrative adjudication being online, particularly as we start through alternatives to arrests, making more things a C-ticket through the city so that they're not in the criminal justice system. There's really no need for us to advertise that you are coming to the city of Evanston and going to pay a fine for something that you probably wish you had not done. So I would ask my colleagues to consider not even posting these online, and if that's not something that we can do, that we can post them for a very short period of time, because probably the only people who are looking are our media sources who know how to get it, or people who are concerned about crime in their particular neighborhood. I would imagine there are not many people in the city who are looking every day just out of pure curiosity of who got arrested. So again, like Alderman Ruth Simmons, I would probably like to not have people's name and addresses, but that's the law, so we have to follow that. But unless there's something I'm missing, I don't think we need to have them online.
Okay. Alderman Fisk.
So, Mario, under your legal analysis that's here, am I understanding this correctly, that we're required to leave them up for 30 days, or we're required to make that information available for 30 days, and then after that we have discretion? Is that?
Are you looking at the second paragraph there?
I'm looking at page 188, the second paragraph.
Yeah, there is no requirement. So that says, so in short, there's no legal authority or other order that requires taking down or altering arrest records after 30 days.
Okay, so what's the 30 days? Where did the 30 days come from?
That I believe is the state. That's the state statute requirement. I can do some quick research real
Okay.
quick.
Can you, when you're researching, can you clarify just what the taking down means? Because if we're not required to have them online, I don't know what they mean by the taking down.
So it sounds like the real question is, do we have to put them up at all?
Right.
With just a point of clarification, with putting them up at all, there is no requirement to put them up on the website.
Okay.
It's an issue of releasing, right? So if someone makes a specific request for them, then we need to provide them. In terms of the website itself, there is no requirement that requires that any municipality post them online, and there is no time requirement with that as well.
Right. So it sounds like there's interest in not posting them on the website at all.
So,
Well, I think what we're trying to figure out is what we're required to do. If we're required to follow state law, is that what the 30 days is referring to, or what? I mean, how much authority do we have just to make our own?
so the requirement
decision?
is that we make it available. Is that through FOIA or just by any request?
That's the state. It's a state police act, Police Record Act. It's an interplay between the two. So whenever someone submits a FOIA request and you provide the information, it needs to comply both with FOIA and with the state statute. And so each of the two have different things that can be provided. And things that must be redacted. So Alderman Fleming cited a few of the things that needed to be provided earlier, such as name, address, location. But then other pieces of information that are specific to arrest records that FOIA doesn't necessarily speak to need to be redacted. For example, a victim's name or any sort of identifying piece of information for them.
So I think from my understanding, so I'm sorry, I spent a lot of time reading this. So the police have to produce an arrest record every day for their transparency. It does not have to be, I imagine before there was the internet, you went down to the police department and asked for it, or I don't know how you got it. So the police have to produce something.
Produce it and
have it
publish it?
available. No, I think they have to produce it and have it available if asked.
So
So it
does
does
it have
not-
to be published? Maybe we need to continue this to when we have staff, because
Right. Yeah. Unless we want to be sure of what's required and not required here.
If it's okay, yeah, it would take a little bit of time to do the research with the specifics. My understanding was today's arrest report update was to indicate that they have been removed from the website. At this point, Alderman Fleming's request from the previous meeting. I can definitely report back with the time restrictions and what specifically needs to be provided via report.
And if it needs to be published, if that's a requirement, or if it just needs to be available.
I can provide all that information.
Alderman Fisk?
Yeah, so the people who sign up to receive the daily police reports, that they do that by going on the city's website and signing up for that newsletter. And what appears on those reports is, I think, pretty much what you described, and no extraneous information. I remember, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I thought I remembered the city manager talking about transparency, and that should be one of our considerations. So, I believe that it meets transparency if people can sign up for it and receive it. And I'm personally, I don't think we need to go beyond that. But I do think we need some more information here about what exactly it is that we need to comply with, and because it looks like we've got a lot of authority to make a decision that matches what we're trying to achieve, and that's important to know. So can we
Yeah.
can we come back to the next meeting with that information?
I can provide that information.
And Assistant City Attorney, can you also look into the law for the administrative adjudication filings that we have online as well?
I can do that as well, Alderman Fleming.
So just so you all know, so right now they're up there just for the year. So we used to have like 5 years worth of these reports online. So now we're just have what happened, since January 1st.
Right, okay. Right, so the question is, what must we report and how? So we'll have more information for our next meeting and be able to make a decision. Okay? Any other thoughts or questions on this particular topic? Okay. Oops, Alderman
sorry.
Fisk, go ahead.
Who was the?
No.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
The committee, I'm assuming, will be listening to what we're saying, and I don't know how often you meet. Do you meet monthly or? Okay. I just want to make sure that what we say up here is shared with the committee, and so that we get their comments too, because I look at you now as the experts. I look at you as our resource in depth. So please weigh in on this. I don't know what the date of our next meeting is, but I hope you meet before that so we can get a little bit of information from you as well as from the law department.
Right, okay. And Alderman Rue Simmons, did you have another comment? No? Okay. All right. Items for communication. Is there anything left that we haven't touched on? Oh, cannabis report. Sorry. So we have in our packet, we have a cannabis report. Any questions or comments about that? All right. Then I think I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Move adjournment.
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much.